Before you pray again, hear this Joel Goldsmith truth about Jesus. If this message reaches you, it is meant for you. For anyone seeking inner peace today, you are not the mind. Listen, there is a reason you clicked on this video. Maybe you're exhausted from praying the same prayers and getting the same pain. Maybe church left you more guilty than healed. Maybe you love Jesus with all your heart, but deep down, you feel like something is missing in what you were told about him. Joel Goldsmith stumbled into that missing piece. And when he did, it quietly shattered everything he'd been taught about Jesus. Not in a hateful way. Not in rebellion. But the way sunlight shatters the darkness in a room that's been closed for too long. Joel discovered something the religious system was never built to handle. Jesus wasn't trying to create worshipers. He was trying to awaken equals. For years, Joel had done what many of us do. He sat in pews, repeated prayers, confessed sins, hoped that maybe, just maybe, one day he'd feel close to God. But then he began to look at Jesus' words with fresh eyes, without the layers of fear and dogma. He saw that Jesus didn't say, "I'm the only one." He said, "You are the light of the world." He didn't say, "Beg me to do miracles for you." He said, "The works that I do, you will do also and greater." Joel realized this wasn't a story about one special man above everyone else. This was a blueprint for your own awakening. Jesus wasn't a distant exception. He was a living demonstration of what happens when a human being completely remembers their divine nature, what Joel called Christ consciousness. And that changes everything, because if Christ is not just a person out there, but a state of awareness in here, then your entire relationship with Jesus is meant to move from worship to participation. Let me show you what this looks like in real life. In a small Midwestern town, there was a woman named Lavra. She was a devoted Christian, the kind who never missed a Sunday service. She taught children's church, baked casseroles for every funeral, and prayed for everyone but herself. Then one day, the diagnosis came: aggressive cancer. Her world cracked open. She did what she'd always been taught. She begged, "Jesus, please heal me. God, I'll be better. I'll do more. I'll serve more. Just don't let me die." Weeks turned into months. The pain increased. Her fear grew louder than her faith. One night, scrolling on her phone in a hospital bed, she found a talk about Joel Goldsmith and Christ consciousness. Out of pure desperation, she pressed play. The words felt dangerous and holy all at once. Stop begging a distant God to come close. Start realizing that the presence of God is the core of who you are. Laura didn't know what to do with that, but she was too exhausted to argue. So the next morning, for the first time in her life, she didn't tell God how sick she was. She closed her eyes and simply sat in stillness. No bargaining, no pleading. Just a quiet, trembling willingness to believe that maybe, just maybe, God wasn't out there. God was the life beating as her. Day after day she tried it. Her mind screamed, "This is crazy. You have to ask for healing." But another part of her was starting to soften. In those silent moments, she began to feel something she hadn't felt in months. Peace that didn't make sense. Joel called this shift not praying for healing but resting in wholeness. Did her cancer vanish overnight? No, this isn't a fairy tale. But something deeper happened first. The fear that had her in a chokehold began to loosen. Her nights stopped being battles with terror. Her identity slowly shifted from sick woman fighting for her life to spiritual being held by a presence she could feel inside her own heart. Over time, her body responded. Treatments that weren't working before suddenly began to take hold. Her doctors were surprised. They called it response to therapy. Lavra called it grace in motion. Whether you call it miraculous or medical, here is the deeper truth. Her outer world started to mirror the inner realization that she was never separated from God. This is what Joel meant. Not magic, not wishful thinking, but consciousness, Christ consciousness, changing everything from the inside out. You see, traditional religion often teaches you this story. You're broken. God is angry. Jesus steps in between so you don't get what you deserve. Joel saw another story buried in the Gospels. You were never separate to begin with. Jesus came to prove that, to model that, to say, what you see in me is also in you, not in your ego, not in your personality, but in your true self beneath the noise of the mind. That's why he said, the kingdom of God is within you, not within your pastor, not just within him, within you. Yet most of us have been trained to pray like beggars at a locked door. Please God, help me. Jesus, come down and fix this. Make my life different. And all the while, the door was never locked. The kingdom was never somewhere else. Christ was never exclusively outside of you. Let me tell you about Marcus, a businessman from Texas. On paper, he had it all: big house, shiny truck, growing company. Inside, he was drowning. Every day was competition, stress, fear of losing it all. He went to church on Sundays, nodded through sermons, wrote checks, and then went right back to anxiety on Monday. After a financial blow nearly ruined his company, Marcus hit bottom. A friend handed him a worn-out Joel Goldsmith book and said, "Just read this slowly." Marcus read words he'd never heard in any sermon. That supply doesn't to start in a bank account, but in consciousness. That lack is not a spiritual truth, but a mental belief. That living by grace means trusting an invisible source that doesn't run on human effort and fear. At first, he laughed. So I just sit there and let God run my business? But something in him was tired of carrying it all alone. He started small. Before opening his laptop each morning, he sat in silence for 10 minutes. No begging. No, God, please make this deal close. Just a simple inner recognition. I am not separated from the source of wisdom, creativity, and supply. The same presence that sustained Jesus sustains me right now. Within weeks, something shifted, not outside, but inside. He stopped making decisions from panic. He stopped seeing every client as a threat or a savior. Ideas began to come that felt inspired, not forced. It didn't turn into instant millions, but the frantic hustle was replaced with a grounded, quiet confidence. And from that place, better partnerships formed, New opportunities appeared, and his work became less about survival and more about service. Again, not magic, not superstition. Consciousness first, form second. This is what the church rarely tells you. You can't live in a consciousness of I'm unworthy, I'm separate, I'm just a filthy sinner, and then expect to experience the life Jesus promised. You can't spend all your prayer time telling God how broken you are, and then wonder why you never feel whole. Joel discovered that as long as you see Jesus as the only Son and yourself as a permanent outsider, you will never step into the very identity he came to reveal, that you too are an expression of the same divine life, not equal to Jesus in history, but equal in essence. Let's bring it closer. Angela grew up in the American South in a small church where every sermon was about hell, sin, and judgment. She loved Jesus, but she was terrified of God. By the time she was an adult, every mistake felt like a ticket to punishment. One night, after a brutal argument with her husband and feeling like a failure as a mom, she sat on the floor of her bathroom and whispered, "Jesus, I can't do this anymore. If you're real, show me something different." Days later, she stumbled onto a message about Joel Goldsmith explaining that Jesus didn't come to make you feel smaller. He came to reveal how big your true identity actually is. Angela felt offended at first. It sounded like too much grace, too much love. But she kept listening. She heard about practicing the presence, not a faraway presence, but the presence at the center of her own being. So she tried something radical. Instead of listing all her failures in prayer, she sat in silence and whispered, "God, if you are truly within me, help me feel you here." At first, nothing, just the usual noise of thoughts. But she kept showing up. One afternoon, standing at the kitchen sink, hands in soapy water, children yelling in the background, something inside her softened. It wasn't a voice. It wasn't a vision. Just a deep, quiet knowing. I'm not alone in this body. I am not alone in this life. The same presence that walked in Jesus walks in me. She cried over that sink like years of fear were finally melting. Her circumstances didn't change overnight, but her center did. She stopped relating to God as a cruel judge and started relating to God as the inner life that breathed her, loved her, and wanted to express through her. That is Christ consciousness awakening. And that is exactly what Joel dedicated his life to teaching. Here's the part most people never tell you. When you start living this way, as if Christ is your actual consciousness, not a theory, your life might first look like it's getting worse. Why? Because everything built on fear, pretense, and ego begins to crumble. Relationships that were based on pretending will shake. Jobs that were purely survival may fall away. Identities you clung to will feel like they're being stripped. Joel warned his students, when truth enters your life, it rearranges everything that isn't aligned with it. So if you start practicing inner stillness, recognizing God within instead of begging God outside, and things begin to shake, don't panic. Don't run back to old beliefs just because they feel familiar. Sometimes the life you built in separation has to collapse, so the life built in union can finally appear. So how do you actually practice what Joel and Jesus pointed to? Not as a theory, not as a nice idea, but as a daily way of being. Here's a simple doorway. Sit in stillness once or twice a day. No begging. No bargaining. Just sit. Gently turn your attention inward and acknowledge, the presence of God is here as me. I don't have to earn it. I don't have to chase it. Let thoughts come and go without fighting them. Your job is not to create an experience, only to rest in the possibility that Christ is your true identity. Throughout the day, when fear rises, whisper inside, I am not the mind. I am the awareness watching these thoughts. Christ in me is my real life. Some days you'll feel nothing. Other days you'll feel a peace you can't explain. Both are okay. Both are part of the journey. This isn't about chasing mystical fireworks. It's about slowly, steadily shifting from I am just a scared human begging a distant God to I am a divine being having a human experience, never separated from the source of all life. That shift, even if it begins as the tiniest seed, will change the way you see your illness, your bank account, your relationships, your past, and your future. Jesus didn't say, cling to me so you don't burn. He said, follow me. Walk the path I walked. Think the way I thought. See the way I saw. Joel Goldsmith spent 50 years showing ordinary people how to do that in their everyday American lives, in apartments and farmhouses, in New York offices and small-town kitchens, in hospital rooms and quiet bedrooms at 3 a.m. And now, it's your turn, not to worship Joel, not to worship even this teaching, but to use it as a doorway into your own direct experience of Christ consciousness. So if something in you is awakening right now, if you feel a tug in your chest, a warmth in your belly, a tear in your eye, don't ignore it. That's not just emotion. That is your own divine nature knocking from the inside. If this message has stirred something deep in you, take a breath with me right now. Hand on your heart, quietly say inside, I am not separate. Christ is my true life. I am ready to remember. If you felt that, even a little, comment, I am ready to remember, below so this becomes a declaration, not just a video you watched. Like this video so more people who are silently struggling with their faith can find this message. And if you want more teachings on Christ consciousness, Joel Goldsmith's insights, and living from the presence in real, practical life, hit subscribe and turn on the notifications. Walk this journey with us, because Jesus never meant to be the only light in the world. He came to show you that you are light too. And the moment you stop begging and start recognizing, your entire relationship with God, with Jesus, and with your own life will never be the same again.